أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All praise is due to Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one and only God. Peace and blessings be upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whom no other prophet will come after him. La ilaha illallah Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. There is no God to worship but Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his servant and a messenger of Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Soon after, Abraha's slave, named Atwada, killed Ariyat. It was then a matter of paying Atwada over the blood price for Ariyat's death. Abraha al-Ashram, at this point, said to Atwada, "Choose what you wish, O Atwada. Now that you have killed him, I now have only the responsibility for paying Ariyat's blood money." Atwada replied, "My choice is that I should have the first opportunity to bed every bride from the people of Yemen before she enters the possession of her husband." And to that, Abraha granted him this, saying, "I concede that to you." He then handed over the blood money for Ariyat. Everything Abraha did was without the knowledge of the Najashi, Ya'ni the Negus, king of the Abyssinians. In his book As-Sirah an-Nabawiyya, Imam Ibn Khatib wrote that Ibn Ishaq stated that when news of the killing of Ariyat reached the Najashi, who had dispatched them both to Yemen, he was furious at Abraha, for he had attacked and killed his commander without orders from himself. Then the Negus swore an oath that he would give Abraha no respite until he had trodden his land and cut off his locks. So Abraha shaved his head and filled a leather bag with Yemeni soil, which he sent to the Negus with a message saying, "O king, Ariyat was merely your slave as I am. We deferred about your command. Everyone owes you obedience. But I was stronger, more effective, and more skillful than he was in managing Abyssinians' affairs. I shaved my head completely when I heard of the king's oath and have sent him a bag of my country's soil, so that he may tread it underfoot and so keep his oath." A slight difference of opinion by Imam Abu Ja'far Muhammad bin Jarir at-Tabari, where he had stated in his book, "When Najashi found out about the killing of Ariyat, he became filled with rage and said, 'He has attacked my own commander and killed him without any instruction from me.' He then swore an oath that he would not leave Abraha in power until he had overrun his land, and he swore that he would not rest in his mind until he had shed Abraha's blood. And when news of the Najashi's oath reached Abraha, he wrote back to the king, 'I have now forwarded to you a phial of my blood and a leather bag of soil from my territory. By means of this, you will be able to secure release from your oath. I ask for the completion of your favor upon me, O king, for I am merely a slave. Any power and splendor which I have is your power and splendor.'" When this message reached the Najashi, he showed Abraha his favor once more and wrote back to him, "I confirm you in your office in the land of Yemen until such time as a further command of mine reaches you." Abraha recognized that the Najashi had shown him favor and had appointed him viceroy over the Abyssinian troops and the land of Yemen. Abraha remained in Yemen while his slave Atwada was for a very long time exercising his right that Abraha had conceded to him as Atwada's chosen reward. But then a man of Himyar or of Khatam attacked Atwada and killed him. When Abraha received the news of his death, Abraha, a magnanimous noble leader, piously attached to his Christian religion, exclaimed, "The time is nigh for you, O people of Yemen, to have over you a man of solid judgment who is able to exercise the self-control appropriate to man of character. By God, if I had known when I let Atwada choose his own reward that he would ask what he did, I would have never allowed him the choice and would never have heaped favors on him in any way. I swear by God, there shall be no blood price imposed from you for his death, and you will not receive any untoward retribution from me for his death." Later on, Abraha built a cathedral church, Al-Qulais, in Sana'a, the like of which had never at that time been seen on earth before. He wrote to the Negus, telling him that he intended to build a church at Sana'a whose traces and whose fame would last forever, and asked for the emperor's aid in this. Al-Najashi, accordingly, sent back to him skilled artisans, mosaic cubes, and marble. When the building was completed, Abraha wrote to the Najashi, "I built a church for you the likes of which was never built for any king before you, and I will not cease striving until I divert to it the pilgrims of the Arabs." Al-Suhaili stated that Abraha sought to humiliate the people of Yemen by building this ugly church, humbling them in a variety of ways. He invariably amputated the hand of any laborer who arrived for work after dawn. He began to transfer to it, from the Balqis palace, marble, stone, and splendid furnishings. In it, he erected crosses of gold and silver and pulpits made of ivory and ebony. Al-Qulais was built very tall indeed, and its spaciousness was amazing. When Abraha eventually died and the Abyssinians dispersed, spirits would inflict evil on anyone daring to take any of its building materials or furnishings. And this was because the building was undertaken in the name of two idols, Qu'ayb and his wife. The height of each of these was 60 cubits, which is roughly around 90 feet tall. Consequently, the Yemenis left the church alone. It remained just as it had been up till the time of Al-Safah, the first of the Abbasid caliphs. He sent there a group of men of determination, judgment, and knowledge who demolished it stone by stone, and today its remains are completely erased. Ibn Ishaq continued, "When the Arabs learned of and talked about Abraha's message to the Negus, a man from the Banu Malik bin Kinana, or a certain intercalator of the Kinana tribe, became enraged. He then traveled to the Al-Qulais church, entered the temple, defecated in it, then left and returned home. And intercalators were the ones who would postpone the sacred month in Mecca, during which warfare would have been forbidden when they wanted to make war. This is referred to in the Qur'an." In Surah At-Tawbah 9, The Repentance, verse 37. Reallocating the sanctity of these months is an increase in disbelief, by which the disbelievers are led far astray. They adjust the sanctity one year and uphold it in another, only to maintain the number of months sanctified by Allah, violating the very months Allah has made sacred. Their evil deeds have been made appealing to them, and Allah does not guide the disbelieving people. When Abraha was informed about the incident, he demanded to know who had done such a thing. He was told, "It was one of the people of that building in Mecca to which the Arabs make pilgrimage. When he heard of what you said of your intention to change the Arabs' pilgrimage to this church of yours, he became angry and so defiled it, thereby indicating that it was unworthy of being a place of pilgrimage." Abraha was enraged at this, and he swore that he would go to the Kaaba and destroy it. "The Arabs have only done this out of vexation on account of their own house. I shall certainly destroy it stone by stone." He wrote to the Najashi informing him of that and asking the Najashi to send him his elephant, Mahmud. This being an elephant unparalleled in the whole earth for its size, stout body, and strength. The Najashi accordingly dispatched it to him. According to At-Tabari, The first person to tame an elephant was Afridun ibn Asfiyan, who killed ad-Dahak ibn Qais al-Fihri in August 684, an Umayyad general, head of security forces and governor of Damascus during the reigns of Caliphs Muawiyah I, Yazid I, and Muawiyah II. It was also he who first saddled horses. The first person to domesticate and ride a horse, though, was Fathmurat, who was the third of the world's kings. It was also said that Prophet Ismail alayhi, son of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi, was the first to ride a horse, and it is likely that he was the first Arab to ride. But only Allah Subhanahu knows best. Sheikh Safiur Rahman al-Mubarakpuri wrote that a man from the Kinana tribe understood Abraha's motives. Therefore, he entered the church under the cover of night, smearing excrement on its front wall. When Abraha learnt of this, he became enraged and led a great army of 60,000 warriors to demolish the Kaaba. He chose the biggest elephant for himself. His army included between 9 to 13 elephants. He continued marching until he reached a place called Al-Mughmas. There, he mobilized his army and prepared his elephants to enter Mecca. Ibn Ishaq stated that the Arabs were highly anxious and alarmed when they heard of Abraha's intent and considered it their duty to do battle with him when they learned he wanted to destroy the Kaaba, God's sacred building. A member of the Yemeni nobility, named Dhu Nafar al-Himyari, summoned his people and those Arabs who would support him to do battle with Abraha and prevent his destruction of the Kaaba. Some did respond, and they engaged in battle. But unfortunately, Dhu Nafar and his supporters were vanquished, and he himself was captured and brought before Abraha. Dhu Nafar pleaded, "O king, I am nothing but your slave, so spare me, for keeping me alive will be more useful to you than killing me." So he spared him, kept him prisoner and in chains. Abraha continued ahead to meet further adversaries, and in the area of Khatham came up against Nufail bin Habib al-Khathami with his two allied tribes of Shahran and Nahis, along with other Arabs supporting tribes. They did battle, but Abraha won and took Nufail prisoner. When Abraha was about to execute him, Nufail pleaded for his life and offered to be his guide in the Arab territory, guaranteeing that the tribe under him would be obedient to Abraha. So Abraha released him and went on ahead with Nufail acting as guide. Reaching Ta'if, Abraha was met by Mas'ud bin Mu'atib bin Malik bin Ka'ab bin Amr bin Sa'ad bin Auf bin Taqif, along with the warriors of Taqif. They addressed Abraha, saying, "O king, we are your slaves, fully obedient to you. We have no dispute with you, and this temple of ours is not the one you want." By this they meant the temple devoted to the goddess Allat that they venerated almost as was the Kaaba. "What you want is the building in Mecca. We will send guides to take you there." So Abraha passed them by unmolested. So Taqif sent with Abraha Abu Rigal as guide to Mecca. They travelled as far as Al-Mughammis, where they made a stop, and it was then that Abu Rigal died at the very same place. The Arabs subsequently hurled stones at his grave. It is his grave, the one at Al-Mughammis, that people still stone even today. When Abraha encamped at Al-Mughammis, he sent forward one of the Abyssinians called Al-Aswad bin Maqsud or Mafsud with a troop of cavalry until Al-Aswad reached Mecca, from where he sent back to Abraha captured beasts taken from the people of Mecca, Quraysh and others. Among these, Abraha acquired 200 camels belonging to Abdul Al-Mutalib bin Hashim, and at that very time he was the paramount chief and lord of Quraysh. As a result, Quraysh, Kinana, Hudayl, and all the rest of the people who dwelled in the holy enclosure of Al-Haram contemplated giving fight to Abraha's forces, but then realized that they lacked the power to resist him, so they renounced the very idea. Abraha then sent Hunata the Himyarite to Mecca with the following order: "Find the leader and the most noble of these people, then tell him that the king says, 'I have not come to war upon you, but only to destroy that building, yani the Kaaba. If you do not engage in warfare to prevent our access to it, then I shall have no need for your blood. If he does not want war, bring him to me with you.'" When Hunata entered Mecca, he asked for the leader of Quraysh. He was then directed to Abdul Al-Mutalib bin Hashim, and so he passed on Abraha's message to him. Abdul Al-Mutalib replied, "By God, we do not want war with him and have not the power for it. This house is God's sacred house, and that of his true follower Ibrahim, upon whom be peace." He was saying in effect, if God does protect it from Abraha, then it is because it is his holy sanctuary and his house. If he abandons it to him, then by God, there is no way for us to defend it. Hunata then told Abdul Al-Mutalib that he must accompany him to Abraha in accord with his orders. So Abdul Al-Mutalib set off along with some of his sons. Arriving in Abraha's encampment, he asked to see Dhu Nafar, who was a friend of his. When he met Dhu Nafar, still in confinement, he asked him whether he had any solution to their predicament. Dhu Nafar replied, "How can a man have a solution when he is a king's prisoner and is expected to be killed at any time? I have no advice to give you, except to say that Unais, the elephant keeper, is a friend of mine. I will send him a message strongly commending you and ask him to seek permission for you to address the king. Speak to him as you see fit, and Unais will intercede on your behalf as well as he can." Abdul Al-Mutalib agreed, and Dhu Nafar sent Unais the following message: "O Unais, Abdul Al-Mutalib is lord of Quraysh and custodian of the well of Mecca. He feeds both men in the plains and wild animals on the mountains. The king seized 200 of his camels, so seek permission for him to see the king and intercede for him as best you can." Unais responded that he would. Unais then spoke to Abraha saying, "O king, here at your door, seeking audience is the lord of Quraysh and keeper of the well of Mecca. He feeds both men in the plains and the wild beasts in the mountains. Allow him in to see you to discuss a matter with you." Abraha agreed and allowed him in. Abdul Al-Mutalib was the most dignified, handsome, and impressive of men. When Abraha saw him, he wanted to honor him by not making him sit below himself. But he did not want the Abyssinian to see him sitting next to himself on the throne. So Abraha descended, sat down on a carpet, and had Abdul Al-Mutalib take his place beside him. He then told his interpreter to ask why he had agreed to come as he asked him to. Abdul Al-Mutalib replied, "What I want is for the king to return the 200 camels he took from me as compensation." Hearing this, the king told his translator to reply as follows: "You impressed me when I first saw you, but you displeased me when you spoke. You want to talk to me about the 200 camels I took from you in compensation, but not about the building which your religion and your ancestors' religion that I have come to destroy?" Abdul Al-Mutalib replied, "I am the owner of the camels. The building has its own master who will protect it." Abraha replied, "He won't protect it from me." "Then it's between you and him," Abdul Al-Mutalib said. and so Abraha returned his camels to Abdul Al-Mutalib. Abdul Al-Mutalib went back to Quraysh and told them the news. He ordered them to go forth from Mecca and seek refuge on the mountain tops and in the defiles, fearing violent behavior from the Abyssinian army. Abdul Al-Mutalib then arose and took hold of the door ring that of the door of the Kaaba, and a group of Quraysh stood with him praying to God and imploring his help against Abraha and his troops. Abdul Al-Mutalib recited at the time when he took hold of the door ring of the Kaaba, "O God, your worshippers protect their homes, so protect your building. Let not their cross and their power vanquish yours tomorrow. If you should leave them free with our Qibla, then that is what you will." Ibn Hisham said that these were what he found to be the authentic verses of this poem. Ibn Ishaq reported that Abdul Al-Mutalib then released the Kaaba door knocker and went off, along with his men of Quraysh, to the mountain peaks, taking up defensive position and waiting for whatever Abraha might do. Wallahu alam bisawab. Ya Allah, please teach us knowledge that is beneficial to us. Let us take advantage of the knowledge that you pour onto us. Please give us knowledge, good deeds and sincerity in our lives. May we receive mercy and guidance from you, Ya Allah. Please increase our iman and ilmu so that we can pass them down to our children, family, friends and all our loved ones. Until my next video, inshallah, please take care and be kind to one another. Jazakumullahu khairan and shukran.